This is my first time making a video next to my pond, and I still don't have a mic, so I don't know how loud the pond is going to be compared to my speaking, but hopefully it's not too annoying. My name's Madeline, and I am a carnivore, kind of, as you could probably tell by the title. I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of calling myself a carnivore, even though I am not purely a carnivore, and why that is the case. And yes, it does piss some people off, but let's talk about it. I developed an autoimmune disease after living in toxic mold in 2021 and 2022 up to the beginning of 2023. And the only way I had found to manage the pain I had from this autoimmune disease was eating basically just meat. I found out about the carnivore diet and was in a really miserable health place in my life, and I wasn't sleeping well, and so I decided, oh, okay, this was like 10 p.m. Oh, okay, I'm going carnivore. And like the next day I went carnivore. I was eating strictly meat, but as time went on, I tried things. I added things back that worked for me. I tried onions and I did okay. I added tomatoes and like tomato sauces and did fine. I actually never gave up coffee, but a lot of carnivores consider coffee carnivore, so that's not really the most controversial thing that I have in my diet as a carnivore. But basically, over time, I added foods back for variety. However, 90%, 99% of my plate is meat. So even though I eat some non-carnivore foods, the reason I call myself a carnivore is because if you were to look at my plate when I eat during the day, usually 3 times a day, 99% of my plate is going to be meat. I might have a little bit of onions in there for variety. Maybe there's a little bit of sauce in the ground beef that I make, like tomato sauce. But for the most part, I eat carnivore. Like, you wouldn't look at it and be like, that's a keto plate or a ketovore plate. I've experimented with that in the past. I've added back a lot more vegetables and done more salads, and it doesn't, I enjoy salads. They don't work as well for me. They make me bloat and gassy, and I don't know, I like them for variety, maybe around the holidays. Like, it's fun to eat a salad, but it doesn't necessarily make me feel my best day to day, and so I just don't really eat them and don't keep the ingredients at the house other than the ones that my guinea pigs eat because they just go bad in my fridge. There are some people who call themselves hyper carnivore, meaning mostly carnivore, and it's probably just the way I am misunderstanding the word, but when I hear hyper carnivore, I interpret that as like more carnivore, like the most carnivore, and not mostly carnivore. I do say to people like, oh, I mostly eat meat. Oh, I'm animal based. I actually, in real like day-to-day life, don't introduce myself as a carnivore to people. Well, first of all, I'm not introducing what I eat to people when I meet them anyway. But if we're talking about food, I don't say I'm a carnivore. I usually just say I eat mostly meat. And that's because this is not a like religious standard to me. There are some carnivores who like it is the standard they have forever and also for everyone, and that's not how I feel. This is the way I'm eating because it makes me feel good, and if that changes, I will change. And also, I don't feel like everyone needs to eat the way I eat. This is just the way I happen to eat, and I'm happy with it, and so I talk about it. Cons, obviously, to calling myself a carnivore when I'm not, is that the more, I keep saying religious, but like the more passionate carnivores who feel like it needs to be meat, salt, water for everyone forever, it is very upsetting because I'm not actually a carnivore. Like when you see me eat an onion and a tomato or tomato sauce or cheeses, that can be like I'm misrepresenting what a carnivore is, and that's not my point of calling myself a carnivore. My purpose in even using the term is because, well, online specifically, it's searchable, and so for people like me who in the beginning I was watching like a ton of content about like what are people eating and what do meals look like and are there recipes I can try. I do want to be easily found for people who are looking for this sort of stuff. Carnivore community though online has been so helpful to me. It really has taught me so much about myself, and things like for me, I do better if I just completely 100% abstain from sugar. There are people out there who can like have a little bit of a brownie and then go back to their way of eating and do just fine. But for me, especially with my history of eating disorders, I do better if I just abstain. And I guess I didn't know that that was an option. Like, I felt like everyone is very judgmental. If you choose to give up foods, they're like, what's wrong with you? You can't have a bite of that. I've also experienced that with my sobriety journey. I decided to get sober a couple years before I went carnivore, and there's still some of that, like, why can't you just have a sip and be normal? Like, just have a glass of wine and like don't be weird about it. People who don't experience binge urges, I guess, just have a different experience of life with food and drinks, and that's okay. But yeah, this has been long and rambly, and I don't know if I've gotten the point across clearly, but I call myself a carnivore really only online, only because it's searchable. Yes, most of my plates are carnivore. However, if you were to meet me in person and you didn't know about this, you wouldn't know that I ever call myself that. Some of my family members do, but if we're talking about food, I say like, oh, I just eat mostly meat. Oh, I just am animal based. And that feels less scary and more approachable to most people. And it also puts me a little bit less on the fringe in real life. And also it's true, I'm not 100% carnivore. So there you go.